Hi, welcome to my home. My name is Kathy, and in today's video, I'm going to share a way that you can help our little feathered friends who help us in the garden by pollinating our flowers and our vegetables. And if you haven't guessed by now, those little feathered friends are hummingbirds. I'm going to go over the type of sugar you should be using, the water you should be using, and the ratio. It isn't rocket science, but everything we can do to help attract those little feathered friends to our yard, the better off we'll all be. So don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to be in my kitchen, and I'm going to go over everything you need to know. First, let's talk about the type of sugar you should be using. Regular, white, refined sugar. Cane sugar, if you have it. If you're not able to find cane sugar, then the white, refined beet sugar will work just as well. What you don't want to use is any organic or raw sugar, because that contains iron, and the little hummingbirds' systems aren't able to metabolize it, and they get more than enough iron in the bugs that they eat. So giving them additional iron in your hummingbird solution is going to be too much for their little bodies to handle. You also don't want to use any type of artificial sweeteners, even stevia, even though that is a natural sweetener. It's just not something that their little bodies can utilize. And you also don't want to use like agave or honey, even though those are natural sweeteners. The honey will actually cause a yeast bacteria to grow in the water solution, which will cause the hummingbirds' tongues to swell so that they're not able to eat, and therefore they starve to death because of that. So just regular white refined cane sugar is the best and only thing you should be using. Now let's talk about the water. If you have well water and you've tested your well water and it doesn't have any heavy metals or chlorine, anything like that in it, then you're safe to use your well water. If you're like me and you're on city water, my city municipality does add chlorine to the water, but does not add fluoride. So if your water contains fluoride, there's going to be a different way to handle that I'll talk to in just a second. So if your water has chlorine in it, then you'll want to, one, either run that through a filter that gets rid of the chlorine. Two, you can boil your water for 15 minutes. That will break up the chlorine molecules, and it'll dissipate all of the chlorine out of the water. Or you can fill a pitcher of water and just let it sit out on your counter for 24 hours. In that process, the chlorine will actually evaporate out of the water, and it'll be safe to use. If your water contains fluoride, then you will need to run your water through a filter that removes the fluoride, because that wouldn't be good for the little birds. I think also if you are able to catch rainwater, you could also use the rainwater because it won't have any of the chemicals that water companies add. But you will want to boil the water to make sure that you kill off any bacteria or anything that could be in that water. Another option would also be using distilled water, whether you buy it or make it yourself. That's a more costly option. That's not something I would do just because of the cost, and making your own is a very time-consuming process, but that is another option if you, say, have fluoride in your water and you don't have a way of filtering it out. But all of the other things that we've talked about can easily be removed by boiling the water or letting it sit out for 24 hours. Now let's talk about the sugar to water ratio. The standard ratio is a 4:1. So you would use 4 cups of water to 1 cup of sugar. Plants and flowers out in nature that the hummingbirds get their food from range anywhere from a 1:1 ratio to a 10:1 ratio. So the 4:1 isn't a hard and fast rule. It's just a nice middle of the road solution that the hummingbirds really enjoy. But say you live in a very hot climate, say like in Arizona or Southern California or Southern Nevada, where it can get up to 110 degrees, 115 degrees during the summer. In those times, if you had multiple feeders, maybe you'd want to fill one of your feeders with a 5:1 ratio. And then that way, the birds frequenting that feeder will get their sugar intake, but will also get additional water to help keep them hydrated. They're probably not going to like that feeder as much as they do the 4:1, but it might be a nice option for them. Also, if it's early in the season where you've noticed that the hummingbirds are out, but there aren't a lot of flowers available for them to get food from, then you may want to consider doing a 3:1 ratio for a little while, which would give them more energy that they need. But keep in mind, doing that will also attract the bees and the wasps. So I would say that would be something that you would do sparingly so that your little feathered friends are getting what they need, but you're not getting the unwanted pests that the higher sugar level will attract. Okay, so now let's mix this up. All you're going to do So what I have here is a 4-cup measuring cup, and to that I'm going to add a cup of sugar. And as you can see, it's not perfectly level. Which is absolutely fine. It does not have to be exact. And to this I'm going to add in about a cup of hot water. And I'm just going to stir this around until it dissolves. It should dissolve pretty quickly. I think my water cooled off just a little bit while it was sitting there. So it's taken just a little bit longer, but I don't know if you can see that, but that is dissolving nicely in the water. As you can see, the sugar has completely dissolved. So now I'm just going to fill my measuring cup up to the 4-cup measurement. Now that water had been boiled and then cooled down. So my solution is now cool enough to put into my feeder. If your solution was still hot, then you would want to make sure you let it cool down before you put it in the feeder, because you don't want the little hummingbirds to get their mouths burned. Please let me know in the comments below what your experience has been using commercial versus homemade hummingbird nectar. Okay, now that we have our feeders filled, the only thing left to do is put them outside and start attracting those hummingbirds. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please be sure to subscribe. And until next time, I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye now.